welcome to Mama Juice. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to talk to you today. Do you want to introduce yourself and just let us know who you are, what you do, and what we're going to talk
Sure. Sure. Thanks for having me. First off, my name is Alexandra Skinner Walsh. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I am founder of the Mad Therapy, which is a private practice, a group practice located in Iowa, but we're right on the border between Iowa and Illinois. So we see both Iowa and Illinois clients.
Very cool. I love that name.
Me too. I love it.
What are we here to talk about?
I think it'd be helpful for a lot of moms to be able to dive into perfectionism and mom guilt and how those kind of correlate and impact the way we experience pregnancy and postpartum and motherhood in general. I don't think it ever goes away.
Absolutely. No, not at all.
Hold up.
And like I mentioned to you before, I always had this thought that because I did become a mother, I always say like later in life, and people laugh at me because people are not having kids into their 40s.
Yes.
And I was 27 when I had my first child, but it feels like I was older because everybody around me in my circle already had kids,
Yes.
and these kids are in school, and I'm just now having kids. So as an older mom, I felt like I had all that adult life that I lived between, say, 20 and 27, where I could have dealt with those issues. I could have sought out counseling, and maybe that would have made me a little bit more stable as a mother. So that's like just the tip of my mom guilt.
Oh, sure. And like to give you some credit here, I think for all of us, right? Maybe you would have gotten a head start and that would have been helpful. But I think it's an ongoing process for all of us. I mean, I think regardless of where we're at, we're always having to deal with mom guilt and mom shame. And that's going to look different at different stages of life for our kid, right? It might be breastfeeding versus bottle feeding when they're an infant, or what type of school you send them to when they're older, what type of activities you put them on in, what kind of things you allow them to do and don't allow them to do as they get older. I mean, I think these things are constantly going to be triggered for us. And the messages we're getting as women and mothers comes the minute we like pop out of the womb and somebody's like, it's a girl, right? The whole world tells you how you should be. And that only heightens in motherhood and pregnancy about the way you should act and the way you should be, the way you should dress and behave, the rules you should have for yourself and for others. You're supposed to be super mom. You're supposed to be super woman. You're supposed to have it all together, even
Right.
if vast majority of us don't.
Right. And something that I would never say this to anybody, even though they're all going to hear it when they listen. But I have so many people in my life who say things to me like, "How are you doing it? You're superwoman. You're super mom. I can't believe 3 kids in 2 years. That's like you're so amazing." And sometimes I literally like cry at the thought of them saying that to me. And I don't want people to stop praising mothers at all, but just because I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just keeping them alive.
Yes.
And that's pretty much as far as it goes. Like, that's how it feels, even though my kids might not think that. They probably think I'm the best mom in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it brings out hearing somebody say, "You are super mom." I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you." And then I go on my part. I'm like, "I'm not."
Yes, right. Like I will never live up to this. But it puts all this pressure too that we're supposed to always have it together. Like you
Right.
should never have a weakness. You should never have a day that's like shit is falling apart and I don't know what to do. My kid's crying in the corner and I just want to like pull my hair out, right? Like
Yeah.
we're not supposed to have those days. Or like those days when you're like, I am actually looking forward to going to work today because I love my child, but I need a break from my child, right? That's not what women are supposed to think and feel, right? And so all of a sudden now there's this pressure of this is how people see me and I better perform. Like I better live up to this every time.
Yes. And I mean, honestly, like this weekend wasn't too bad, but there are some Sunday nights where I'm like, thank God it's Monday. Like I'm the only person skipping into my office. And it's because like my kids just were on one, and I couldn't deal. And my only saving grace was looking forward to that Monday morning. And a lot of the judgment and whatnot that we feel, I feel like isn't as much out there as we think it is. A lot of it is the pressure we put on ourselves.
Sure.
And so like I have never seen much shame in, you know, working mom versus stay-at-home mom. I've been both, and I've never felt it. But there's still that stigma that's out there for whatever reason. I look at it like everything has its challenges, and they're different. It doesn't mean one is harder than the other, one is better than the other. It just means they're different. And one of the challenges that stay-at-home mom face is there's no escape.
Yes.
You know, whereas I, on a Sunday, when my kids have just been like up my ass all weekend and just making me want to pull my hair out, I can go, all right, it's almost bedtime, and then we get up and I send them to daycare.
Yes.
When you stay home, like that is what suffered the most. As a stay-home mom, for me, that was the hardest part, was my mental health.
Oh yeah.
Because it was like Groundhog's Day, and there was no escaping them ever.
No, never. And we love them, right? It doesn't negate our love for them, but that shit's hard. That is really hard. So, I mean, being able, especially if we have, like I have some clients who are stay-at-home moms who have a partner then who is like, well, this is what you signed up for. And I came home from a long day of work and I need to relax. Not giving credit to the fact that mom has worked all day too. It's just a very different kind of job than maybe what they're doing at work. And she needs a break too when you get home. And not giving enough credit to stay-at-home moms in that way.
Right. And I feel like we need to give credit too to the hubbies who come home and they're like, yeah, go to the gym, you know, and they step in and they take care of things. Because I have friends who I see like in the evening when their husbands come home, they're stay-at-home moms, they get to go to the gym, they go run some errands. And it's like, good for you, like for, you know, picking that husband that's going to be that dad that's present. Because it is hard to come home from a long day of work and parent. Because sometimes when I get home, you know, my kids haven't seen me most of the day. So they're like, Mom, and I'm just like, shh.
Right. I'm trying to just get home. I'm trying to transition too, kind of thing.
Right. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you about too is postpartum anxiety, because I feel like it's something that isn't as recognized. You know, we all hear postpartum depression. We know what's out there. When my twins were born, I remember I wasn't depressed. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel depressed. So I thought I was okay. Like I thought I was doing all right. But then I started to have all these like really gruesome thoughts in my head of things that could go wrong. And one example that sticks with me is I remember I pulled the steam blanket from under my son, and his head kind of jerked to the side really fast. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, why would you do that? Like you could have broke his neck. And I pictured it happening. And I literally was beating myself up as if I just snapped my son's neck, to the point where I was like in tears. Nothing happened. He was just laying there content eating his hand. But for me, I didn't even recognize it then. It took me, I want to say they were close to 1 when I started taking an antidepressant for anxiety. So it took me a good year to recognize what it was. And that was like a torturous year.
Yeah. And it's so common, right? Like, yes, we talk more about postpartum depression, but anxiety is just not, if not more common than depression. And there's also like postpartum traumatic PTSD, traumatic experiences. There's postpartum depression for dads. There's all these things that moms and dads can experience, but especially moms that we don't talk about. Yet, if you look at the statistics, vast majority of us are experiencing, yet it's this thing that nobody talks about. Right? That nobody's like, you know, when you're pregnant, they're like, oh, sleep when you can, and, you know, eat while you can, and all these, nobody's like, hey, by the way, watch out for this. Like, it might creep up on you. It might sneak up on you. If you might be worried about snapping your baby's neck over something that they're perfectly fine. Right? Nobody mentions those things. Nobody warns you about that. Yet it's so incredibly common that then when it happens, you're like, something must be wrong with me. Because nobody said this.
Yeah, I told a friend, you know, one of my closest friends, she's a PA, and we were just talking about how we're doing. And I was like, you know, I just keep picturing these really horrible things happening to my kids. And I think for a minute she thought I meant like me intentionally hurting them. She's like, oh, what do you mean by that? You know, and I'm like, no, like I keep seeing it in my head. And I told her the blanket story. And I think just saying it aloud to another person, it was like, wait a second, like, is this stuff normal? And it does make you look at it and kind of evaluate, like, should I talk to somebody about this? Unfortunately, it took me almost a year to finally do it. But one thing that I think this pandemic has brought that is kind of a silver lining is everything is gone virtual. And I'm hoping that that sticks to the point where people say, wait a second, like this is working for people. Not everything. I love human interaction. I really do. But for example, you know, I had 3 kids in 2 years. So taking all 3 kids by myself anywhere was just terrifying. And it just further, you know, irritated my anxiety.
Yes.
And so in the beginning, when you first have kids, you have doctor's appointments. You know, if you're on any assistance like WIC, you have appointments for yourself. Where the heck am I going to fit in therapy? And now that I work full time and all of my sick time goes to my kids because kids get sick, I don't have time to myself to do my self-care that I need. And so I'm going to be getting into some therapy here soon because I can clock out for my lunch break and have my session clock back in rather than having to fit in drive time on top of everything else.
Right. It makes it so much more accessible, affordable. We don't have to worry about gas money to get there or childcare to make sure that we can actually like attend therapy. Or if we're a new mom, we can be at home, especially if we're experiencing postpartum depression or anxiety. The idea of leaving our baby is like not like even something to consider. We only leave for pediatrician appointments or for our baby only, right? Or babies. And so being able to meet from the comfort of your own home, even, and saying, I can, if I have a newborn, I can even be here with my baby, or I have moms who have like 5, 6, 7-year-olds are like, you know, my kid's in the other room. I know they're safe. They know where I am. They can come get me, but I'm okay. We can have this separation. I can take this little bit of time for me and still show up as a mom.
Right. And I think a misconception that we kind of, I almost want to say we lie to ourselves and say, you know, if we're taking care of our physical health, then we're taking care of ourselves. Yes. But I think so much of it starts with your mental health, because if you are not in a good mental state, how are you going to take care of anything, much less even your physical health? That's what leads to, you know, some of our poor eating habits and even sickness. If you're stressed, your body, your immune system goes down and you get sick. And so I think we really need to promote mental health almost at the top, because that's going to help you take care of your physical health.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more, but I'm also a mental health counselor, so I'm clearly biased because I see a lot of value in it. But I agree. I mean, it's amazing how much, and even research backs it, so it's not just my opinion. It makes anybody feel better. But I mean, it is amazing how much physical health and mental health are linked and correlated, and yet the weight we give each of those is completely different. Like perfectionism and mom guilt, I think something that's really important for moms to remember is that a lot of these like comparison points or the ways that they think they should be are a lot of times scripts that were given to them either from their own mom, good or bad, right? Their own mom, society, maybe their siblings, or from their friends about the way a mom should show up to the world or to their relationship, how much they should give, how much they shouldn't give. A lot of times I think the cultural script is that a mom should give everything to her child. Like the ultimate compliment, the ultimate thing to be is selfless, super mom, has it all together, never makes a mistake, never falters, always looks physically and emotionally and mentally put together. And I think moms everywhere, people everywhere, owe it to themselves to rewrite that and to allow moms to be, human, right? Like imperfect. And sometimes they're not going to have it all together, and they might make different choices than one another. And that doesn't make one better or worse. They're just different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody is entitled to do what works for them. I think that's what's important. I feel like we take our pre-mom life and we try to apply that to our mom life. So it's like, well, before I had kids, I was able to do X, Y, and Z. Like, why am I not doing that now? Well, because now you have kids.
Yeah.
And they take a lot. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of energy. And I think it's okay to lean on certain things, maybe even technology, you know. I'm not promoting put your kid in front of the TV and let that raise them by any means, but even screen time, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to limit my screen time because that's just too much for me to handle, to manage. If this day I need to put them in front of a movie because it's just too much for me and I'm going to go lay on my bed for a minute. I did that yesterday.
Yeah.
I put them in front of a movie. They had a snack. They had just come in from playing outside. We spent 2.5 hours at the park. They're good. All right.
Yes.
They have food. They have water. They have entertainment. And I got a solid 20 minutes just laying on my bed because they were so enthralled in this movie.
Yes.
And I just relaxed. And it did so much for my day. And I'm like, why don't I do this more often? And it's because, especially being a working mom, I feel like every minute that I am at home, that I'm not spending with them, I'm being cruel. Because I'm like, they are taken care of by other women, probably with drive time and my lunch break, about 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. So what are you doing sitting on your bed while your kids are out there watching a movie? But it made me a better mom after that. Because I was able to decompress and say, like, okay, go out. I'm ready to sit and watch the movie with you. Oh, you don't want to watch it anymore? Let's go play something. I now have the energy to do that.
Yeah, you can show up for them in a way that, I mean, there's a difference between like being there and being present when you're there.
Right.
And when we are able to get that balance of self-care, like that independent time or the things you need to be, I mean, just a functioning, sufficient human being, we're a better parent. And that's going to look different for everyone, for the record, right? Like what that means to take time for me, right? I know we talked on briefly, I think before we started, was like this idea of stay-at-home moms versus working moms, right? Like people have different tolerance levels for how much they can take or what they need to self-care, how much time they want with their kids or what they will do with their kids and what they feel comfortable with. All that's okay. But I think being able to give yourself permission to say, I deserve space in this too. Like my world, yes, revolves around them, but I have to take a moment to rest to keep revolving.
Right. Yeah. And I really do love that analogy that people give about the airplane. They tell you to put your mask on first because you can't breathe. How are you going to make sure they're breathing?
Yes.
And that just, it is so true. It applies to life and it really does. And so like, if you want to do what's best for your kids, you need to do what's best for you because that's how you're going to be able to do it. Right. And I mean, I've been there. I've been that person that's burnt myself out. And thank God for my mother. Okay. Like I do not know how people live far away from their family and have kids. Because
I don't know either.
That saint of a woman.
Yes.
I don't know how I'd be doing right now.
Yes.
But I think that's another thing too, is like, find your support. This is another thing that I talk a lot about on this channel is, we used to be multi-generational homes. Like that was common. And so your support was built in. It wasn't even a question. You didn't have to ask for it. Right. Your mom's there, your grandma, your aunt, whoever's living in your house, and everybody helps raise these kids as one community. The older kids help with the younger kids, and everybody is supported in some way. And we don't have that because people are spread across the country, other countries. People are having smaller families. And so find those connections wherever you need to. Maybe it's a counselor. Maybe it's a mom friend you met in a group. Maybe you met in prenatal yoga, like whoever. Like find somebody to lean on. And I promise you, especially another mom is going to be like, I got you.
Yes, I get it. I'm there. I'm in it. Or I've been there and I've been in it. I get it. Yeah. How can I help? How can I support? Or sometimes they don't even got to ask, right? Yeah. They just kind of know.
Right. And I've been this too, where people offer help and I'm like, oh my God, I'm okay. Yes. And it's like, why? Why did I say that? I don't got it.
Right. Right. But it's that like super mom. Like I got to live up to this standard. There's this pressure of people need to see me this way or people do see me this way and I better not let them down. But I actually think that being able to demonstrate for our children, regardless of their gender or sex, is being able to model for them what it looks like to be a parent and a human parent, one that's going to make mistakes and that one that needs their time and sets boundaries and says, no, I love you, but no, like I I need to eat before I go and I play outside with you. You ate, it's my turn, and then we'll go outside, right? Like whatever it is, you're modeling for your children what it looks like to be a parent and a healthy parent, and what it looks like to be human and make mistakes and be completely imperfect and not be super woman or super mom or super dad.
Right. Right. And it also, you know, to add on to that, like I said, not wanting to accept help, that doesn't make you look weak to your kids. That makes you look strong, and it's going to teach them when you need help, reach out, you know, find your support. And so I think that's super important.
Right. And what a great gift to give them.
Yes, exactly. And I think leading by example is something that we talk about, but for some reason it's hard for us to implement.
Yes.
You know, like we all know that that's a thing, but to actually do it's for some reason it just seems out of reach for a lot of us, myself included.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a mom who might be having depression, anxiety, these overwhelming feelings, but isn't quite ready to seek out therapy?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with seeking support. And that could be a therapist. If it's not, that's okay, right? You should do that when you're ready. That's when it's going to be most beneficial. But find your supports. Like you said, if it's a mom in a group or a family member or a friend, somebody you can really, truly say, I'm struggling here and I need some help. How can, even if it's just a vent, right? I just need somebody that I can be authentic and honest with. I think it can also be really helpful for moms to give themselves permission to not be perfect, like at all. I know for me, one of the most freeing things I did was, so my kiddo's like somewhere between 1.5 and 2 in there. And she turned 1 in the middle of the pandemic. And I was like, I'm not having a birthday party. And I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I know a lot of moms who still, you know, like got all dressed up and like did their whole house. And that's wonderful. But I was like, honestly, I don't have time for that. She's not going to remember this. Like, what is for me, it was like, I'm the one that's going to rush around with my head, like a chicken with my head cut off, stressed to the max, trying to get it all together for pictures that she's never going to remember. Right. And so instead, giving yourself permission to say, I don't got to do that. Right. I can pick how I show up and do it. For me, that was, I made her a cake with my husband. It was absolutely horrific. It turned out really ugly, but she ate it and she loved it. And we had a grand old time. Right. Like, and that was all. That was it for her first birthday party. It wasn't this elaborate thing that originally I had planned. But I think if we give ourselves permission to just show up, allow whatever it is for you in that moment to be okay, we actually get to enjoy the moment rather than it look like we enjoyed it.
Yes, like how fun is that story to tell her later?
Right.
You know, like we made this ugly cake.
Oh my God. So we have pictures of it. My husband refuses to look at the pictures. He's like, it's so nasty. I'm like, I don't care. She loved it.
I'm gonna need those pictures sent to me.
I'll have to send you one. It's pretty. It's supposed to be the circus tent. Oh, but it just, I thought I had more creative talent than I really do.
No, I tried making chocolate chip pancakes for my twins for their 3rd birthday because I was like, you know what, we need to start like a breakfast tradition. I'm gonna make them chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream. First of all, I forgot to even buy anything. So like last minute, like my mom's like, I think I have chocolate chips, and I'll go to the store and get you.
Yes.
And it was just a disaster. It was like this like soggy clump. I'm like, how do people make chocolate chip pancakes? But they liked it and they ate it, and we put a candle on it and sang happy birthday.
Perfect. And they'll love it. They'll never know any different.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. And it's like that moment passed, and I'm not going to go down in the book of the world's worst mom because I don't know how to make chocolate chip pancakes.
No. And if that's the case, then I'm doomed right there alongside you. I do not cook for shit. Like, I'm the world's worst cook ever. Right? I am not one of those moms, unfortunately.
I want to know how many moms that are listening know how to cook, because I feel like a lot of people I talk to, like a lot of moms are like, yeah, I don't do that.
No, God, no, I don't do that. My husband does. I'm like, you cook away. You cook away,
like
sir.
Like,
no, thank you for me.
Cooking. I love it.
Right. But moms, I mean, that's part of it. Moms need to just know their strengths and own them. And same with their weaknesses. You can't be good at it all. Own the stuff you're good at. Hone that. And the stuff you're not great at, own that too. That's okay. And model that for your kid. Me personally, I don't want my kid growing up thinking I'm super mom, because I don't want her to grow up and think she has to be super mom.
Yeah.
And I don't want her to put me in this spotlight that then I'm going to feel like I need to show up in this way for her. I want her to understand that I'm always going to show up as my best version for her because I love her and my world revolves around her. But sometimes me revolving around her means I need a break. And that someday she's going to need that too. And so let me model for you how to do that.
Right, right. You know, there's a sentence that I really dislike as a working mom, and it hurts my feelings. Like, it really does. And it's when people say, well, I chose to stay home because I want to raise my own kids. I don't want other people raising my kids. I'm like, they're not up with them at night when they're puking all over themselves, and they're not puking on your bed. Like, I'm doing that stuff, you know? I feel like I'm the one instilling the values in them, instilling
Definitely.
a culture in them.
Yeah.
So when people say that, I'm just like, it makes me feel like, am I not raising my kids? Like, you know, so I wish people would stop saying that.
Well, and it negates all the hard work that working moms do have. And that's where I think that shaming can happen from moms, honestly, is that it's this, there's a place for both. And both working moms, stay-at-home moms, are honorable and hardworking and wonderful and doing really hard shit. And they deserve the recognition, but both deserve recognition, not one or the other, not one at the expense of the other. We can lift each other up together rather than saying, do you know what? I'm really good over here because I'm a working mom or I'm a stay-at-home mom, but that person's not because they're doing the opposite.
Right. And I love when I hear like a working mom say, like, I can never be a stay-at-home mom. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes.
And if a stay-at-home mom is like, I could not imagine doing that. That's okay. And that's good for you. And, you know, I don't want to say lucky, but like, yeah, you are lucky. If you have, not everybody, not all working moms choose to be working moms, and not all stay-at-home moms choose to be stay-at-home moms. Sometimes our situation forces us into it, and we do the best we can with what we have.
Exactly. We all deserve compassion and empathy for that, because I don't care what we're doing. It's hard. It is hard being a mom. I don't care. I mean, there's different challenges for working moms versus staying at home moms and vice versa. But that does not mean that one is easier than the other. It does not mean that working moms are copping out of mom responsibilities because they're working. It just means they're taking on different challenges that stay-at-home moms don't have to face, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to, am I just getting upset because of my own insecurity? Because it's not like they're saying, oh, you're not raising your kids. They're just saying, oh, I chose to stay home and raise my kids. And then I take that like, oh, are you saying I'm not raising my own kids? And it's like, maybe they're not. Yeah. Maybe that's not what they meant by it at all.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's some of that like cultural scripts, right? About the way women have and the way society to some extent still says women should show up in the home. And that ranges from household responsibilities to childcare too, right? And any little thing can trigger that in women because it's a sensitive spot that, I mean, it's generations deep.
Right. And I actually told my kid's dad something about that one time. I don't remember what the conversation was. He said something dumb. I don't know. And I was like, you know, the problem is women are expected to now have a full-time job so that we can contribute, because a lot of homes can't make it on one income. It's very common nowadays.
Yeah.
But we're also still expected to do all the things when we get home. We're expected to cook the dinners and clean the kitchen and bathe the kids, and it's just not feasible anymore, you know, but that's what we are expected to do, and that's the pressure we put on ourselves.
Yes.
You know, I have 3 hours from the time I pick my kids up to the time I put them to bed, where I need to accomplish like 12 hours worth of stuff.
Yes.
And it's hard.
And they're not always like on board with you, like, okay, yeah, we got to get this done. Sometimes they're actively fighting you on all of it.
Yeah, more times than
Right. But I think that could be really helpful for either couples who are thinking about having a baby or couples who are pregnant and getting ready for a baby. If you're already past that stage, have the conversation now. It's never too late about what do these roles look like. And for women, being able to set those boundaries around, you want this and be able to communicate clearly. If mom guilt comes up, recognize that it's a feeling. It doesn't make it true. That these are the things I need. I can't. For me, right? One of the conversations I had with my partner was, if we have a kid, you better not expect me to all of a sudden like be cooking dinner all the time and be the only one taking care of this kid, because it ain't going to happen. Like, it's just, that is an unrealistic expectation, not going to happen. You're going to need to step up and help me here. And this is what that's going to look like in my perfect world scenario. And then they can share their perfect world scenario, and you guys can find this common ground to figure out what that looks like. And honestly, that's probably going to change and evolve over the years and different milestones and different number of children. So continuing to have, no matter how repetitive it may seem, that conversation about, here are my needs, here are my expectations, what are yours? Let's find the middle ground. So that way, hopefully it can help alleviate some of that unspoken burden we can put on ourselves that honestly sometimes doesn't need to be there, because our partner's like, well, had you told me, I would have been there. I would have done that. But I didn't know. I didn't know you needed that.
Right. And then all of a sudden you're resenting somebody for something that you should have expressed.
Yeah.
And you can't expect anyone to be a mind reader, no matter how obvious you think that is, it might not be in their line of sight. Mm-hmm. And you can't get mad at somebody just because you had a thought and they didn't hear it.
Exactly. If you communicate that thought and then they don't do it, or you don't find the middle ground, or you find the middle ground and then they don't do it, like, then go ahead, resent, be angry, do all you want to do to be angry. But you need to communicate that first before you can allow yourself to really get into I'm angry at them for not meeting this need of mine that I never told them.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. So one of my current mom guilts that is preventing me from doing something that I feel like I really need to do is weaning my twins from breastfeeding. They are 3. They turned 3 last month.
Oh my goodness. That's so exciting.
I just can't bring myself to do it. Yeah. And it's because, my daughter, I weaned her when she was 2.5. Mm-hmm. And the boys were about 6 months at that time. Mm-hmm. And I just felt, I really felt like I needed to do it for myself because I was just exhausted. But also, she's always been very mature. And I mean, like, people always think she's older than she is because she just gets things. And so I was able to sit her down and tell her, like, we're done, like, you're big and strong. And that's why you needed your milkies. You got it. You're a big, strong girl. And you're not a baby anymore. Yeah. And she understood that. Did she still cry the first couple nights? Mm-hmm. She did. Yeah. But it just wasn't so bad because I knew she got it. My boys, they're just not there. And I don't want to hurt them, but I'm done. They're 3 and I'm done. Yes. But I don't know where to put that guilt and make it happen, because I've set dates so many times with myself and, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week.
I think it's just being able to separate on all levels of mom guilt, regardless of where it's stemming from, is being able to step back and say, like, where this is guilt. So we recognize that real fast, right? Especially if it's mom guilt, like, this is mom guilt, right? I'm feeling right here, right now. And it is rough, right? But then being able to sit back and say, okay, hold on. I'm feeling this, but do I need to own this? Or is this just a feeling that I just need to kind of weather through because it's going to pass? Or is this something that I really do need to hang on to, and it's going to teach me something that I need to do different? Because that's what guilt is supposed to be there for, is to be able to tell us we're doing something that's off balance with our values or who we are or the types of relationships we want, and to help us course correct. Mom guilt a lot of times falls into this like category of almost more shame of, it's not helping me. I wouldn't necessarily do anything different. I still feel like it's the right choice. It's just a hard period to get through. Yeah. I'm not necessarily doing anything wrong. So then it's about being able to sit with that emotion, as uncomfortable it may be, and then let it go. Let it pass.
Yeah. Okay. I'll follow up with you and let you know how.
Yes.
Right. Well, I have 4 days off for Christmas, and so I'm like, this is it. Yes. We're going to do it. They're going to be spoiled by getting all these new presents. So it's a happy time. And it's time to let go. I think another reason it's a struggle for me is I'm not having any more children. Yes. And so
maybe there's some grief there too then.
Mm-hmm. It's the last baby thing, and I'm hanging on to it for dear life.
Of course. So that might be, that's a whole nother different thing, right? Is like mom grief. It's like, saying goodbye to these milestones that were wonderful. And then we, on the one hand, right, it's this balance. On the one hand, it's like, oh, I'm so excited for what's yet to come. And on the other hand, we're like, oh, but I'm really going to miss this.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there's no more babies coming into the home. So it's
Right.
the last time I breastfeed them. I'm getting emotional. You're the
Of
second person to make
course.
me cry.
Cry away. That's what we do in therapy, right? Like I'm
Right.
used to it.
Yeah, it's just it's the last time I breastfeed them is the last time I'll breastfeed ever.
Yes. And that's
And
sad. That's
it's
so
so sad.
sad. It is. Oh, girl, I've cried over so many milestones ending with my baby, right? Like it's hard.
Yeah.
It's never going to get easy. I think it's just focusing on why you're doing it because it sounds like you have your why and it's pretty clear. It's being able to say, right? Like this is what's, even though it's hard and it's painful and maybe I feel bad about it, this is what I really feel like is best for them. And it's what I really feel like is best for me, which is ultimately what's best for them.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think honestly we'll all sleep better. And we'll feel better because
And they'll
they're very,
transition.
very dependent on it.
Yes. And they'll transition,
Yeah.
right? It's going to be rough. It always is for all of you, right? But
Right.
they're resilient little things. They learn
Yeah.
fast.
Right. I mean, I remember crying with my daughter, and I was like, I can't do this. And I remember so vividly thinking, just do it, just breastfeed her. And then I was like, no, because then you're just almost like messing with her emotions because you made her cry to this point, and now you're going to give in, and then you're going to try it again. Like that's me.
Yeah. Well, it's going to make it harder for you because then, right, unconsciously, they're not honestly
Yes.
thinking these things. But, right, she's like, well, if I cried that long last time, if I just go a little longer, then maybe mom will give in again, right? And so you're kind of in this like bad pattern now where it's just going to extend and extend and extend.
Right. Absolutely. So there's some of my mom guilt right now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a strong one. It's especially with breastfeeding. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. There's always guilt, no matter what your choice is.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
That's a whole other video I could go on about because I
Yes.
love talking about breastfeeding.
Yes.
And I feel like there was a lot of misconceptions when it comes to people promoting breastfeeding, and again, it's those insecurities that come out. So when women who couldn't breastfeed hear people talking about how wonderful it is, they feel shamed instantly.
Yes.
And to me, like, I think all my kids supplemented in the beginning. So I'm definitely not against formula.
Yeah.
I think formula is a beautiful thing that we have because before that, if you couldn't breastfeed, if you didn't have a wet nurse, your baby didn't eat. And,
Yeah.
then your baby doesn't make it. So
Right.
I think formula is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to be able to talk about breastfeeding because I think it's really cool. But I
Really
do
cool.
feel like it's hard for me to talk about it because I don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Right. Right. It's a sensitive spot that is a hard line to walk with moms and how to talk about it and address it in a way that's encouraging for both. But I think it's possible. I think even just what you've done here is right, shed light on that. There's a place for both, either in combination or completely separate from another, but that both can coexist and be equally wonderful. One does not necessarily have to be better, right? Like I personally don't like the breast is best kind of thing. I mean, I breastfed, but it's just, I don't believe it, right? I believe whatever is best for mom is what's best for baby. And that could be breasts, that could be bottle, that could be a combination. It could be, oh my gosh, I'm going to get the word wrong for what people do, but like, people who buy breast milk on the market and then they
Yeah,
feed that to their
you
kids.
can do like donor milk.
Yes, donor milk. Thank you. That stuff, right? That could be a solution, and that's equally okay.
So I have been guilty of spreading the breast is best, and I feel like it's because of my interpretation of what that means versus what I feel other people interpret it as.
Sure.
Which I guess if something is that big that it's left up for interpretation, like it could be hurtful.
Oh, sure.
And I view it as like breast milk is nutritionally superior to formula because formula is, in a sense, synthetic breast milk, right? Our entire goal is to make this powder that can sustain a human as breast milk can, which is what breast milk is for.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's wonderful that humans have evolved to the point where we've made that happen.
Yes.
And so we don't have to depend on this anymore. Like that's amazing, like scientifically and everything. But I mean, I don't know, and maybe it's because I was able to breastfeed, but I don't know why it is such a trigger when breast milk is talked about in that way. You
Mm,
know, like if I turn it around and say, like, for example, I have a friend who cannot process raw vegetables. If
mm,
I say that when you cook vegetables, you cook out a percentage of their nutrients, meaning raw vegetables are healthier than cooked vegetables.
mhm.
That doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, and it's a fact. And
Sure.
so I feel like that's very similar to this, but since all those feelings are involved in it, I
Yeah.
can't say this.
I think some of it's the wording too, right? Is the mess. I think it's misleading, right? Like breast is best. I think can for moms who can't breastfeed or choose not to for whatever reason can be like, well, if that's best, does that mean that I'm not giving the best for my kid? Because that's all I want to do is give the best for my kid and I can't. So that brings a whole level of shame or guilt or pain or grief that the person saying those things don't actually mean to share at
Mm,
all by any means, right?
right.
But I think that that's some of the thoughts that can happen for moms is, well, I want to give my best, and
Yeah.
because of the saying, even if they don't mean it, now I feel
Right.
like I'm falling short in some way right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I haven't even started momhood really, and here I am already
Right.
failing.
Right. Yeah. And I don't consider formula failure. And
No.
I don't even, I mean, I have seen some people shame moms who choose to formula feed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you care? Like, as long as
Yes.
they're being, like, they have this job to feed their children and they're doing
Yes.
it.
Right.
And your opinion of of if they should have tried breastfeeding,
Right.
care so much.
Exactly.
You
I was
know,
like, don't
like,
you have more stuff to do? Like, aren't you busy? You're supposed to be a mom too, right? Like,
right.
aren't you busy? Go do your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm judging you because you have enough time to talk bad about formula and you're not spending that time with your kid.
Right. But it's that acceptance again, right? Of like you're doing, right? Is being able to say like we can hold space for all and all can be good. We can have our preferences. That's okay. But
Right,
we also don't need to put other people down in order
right,
to have our preferences. We can just have them and also allow people to have theirs and allow them all to be equally wonderful.
right. And I honestly haven't talked much about breastfeeding on my channel because I do know it's so sensitive um, for people, but I want to because I love
Yes.
breastfeeding and I want to support people who do want to breastfeed and I
Yeah.
want to be able to help people who want to breastfeed.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, I also want to be able to help them understand that that's okay. And so I
Yes.
have actually had a hard time figuring out how to fit that into my platform because I don't want to hurt people. Like that's not what I'm about. But
No.
I do, you know, I do have knowledge to spread.
Yes. Yes. I think you just give weight to both. That's all that matters. I mean, with everything. There's
Yeah.
a podcast that just came out with Brene Brown and Barack Obama. And he talks about like how this idea of holding two truths that don't go together at the same time and how valuable
Oh.
that can be. And I think that's essentially what I mean, we have to do with breastfeeding is hold these two truths that maybe don't always go together at the same time and be able
Oh,
to
I
give
love
space for
that.
both to exist.
I feel like you just like blew my mind. Like that explains like my whole thought process on most things.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Life becomes so much easier when we allow things to just exist together rather than
Yeah.
saying, I have to pick one. One has to be true, the other has to be false. Just let them both
Right.
be true and then go from there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I honestly feel like you've changed my mind on the whole term of breast is best because I never thought about it like that. And it's so true. Like the wording, it is. It sounds in a way like you're doing the bad thing and you're doing the good thing.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. Like I'm all about promoting it because, I always assume that that slogan came out because, my generation growing up is I never saw anybody breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I became older and started doing my own research as a future mother where I was like, oh, I should look into this. And
Yeah.
so I love the idea of trying to bring that back to being a norm because
Mhm.
I just assumed like, oh, when I get pregnant, I'll get to pick out bottles and I'm gonna, you know, feed my baby formula.
Yeah.
And then I found out about this whole new world, and I feel like it is because people started talking about the whole breast is best thing. So I feel like
Hmm.
the intention behind it was good, but I feel
Oh, definitely.
like maybe Maybe they need a new slogan.
Just gotta rework it a little bit.
Yeah,
right? So that way,
breast milk is cool.
yes. I think it's just permission again, right? Like you're allowed to make whatever decision you want, and all are equally good.
Yeah.
Here's all your options.
Right, right. And I think that's overwhelming for
Oh yeah.
a lot of, for myself, you know, all
Oh yeah.
the options and the decisions that you have to make, as
Yeah.
you never feel like more of an adult than when you have to make life-changing decisions for other humans, you know. And even like naming them, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want to scar them for life. Like, what if they grow up and they hate their name? Like, one of my
Right.
sons is named Luke, and I'm like, what rhymes
Yeah.
with Luke? I'm like, Luke, puke. What?
Yes.
I named my kid something that rhymes with puke.
Yes. Right.
It's like the weirdest stuff that I think about that's gonna affect my kid someday. Like,
Yes.
if anyone ever
Right.
calls him Lukey Pukey, I'm gonna have a problem.
Right. Right. But that's why I think that perfectionism just kicks in day one. That mom guilt kicks in day one, and all of a sudden nobody talks about it, so we don't have the tools to really address it, and we just kind of try and truck along and assume that everybody else thinks and feels the same way we do, and so we don't say anything out of fear of shame and what will they say and what will they think if I made this choice or if I thought this way, rather than just being able to be like, yeah, I think this, and have people be like, do you want it? I would. Vast majority of people are going to look around and be like, holy shit, you too? Me too. Like,
I love when that happens.
Right.
Dude, it's like one of my favorite moments, not even just as a mother, but just as a human,
Yes.
where it takes that one person to stand up and say something, and everybody's like, no way, like,
Yes.
me too. It's the best.
Right. Right.
Just finding people to empathize with. I think we
Exactly.
need to lead with empathy.
Definitely. Definitely. We have to. We have to get better as people, as society, at being empathetic, being compassionate towards one another. I think we will go a whole lot farther together.
Right? Just functioning like a community. Like,
Yes.
think about your community. Think about the people around you, the person next to you, even if you don't know them, even if you don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, let's just think about
Yes.
each other and how our actions affect one another, because that's what we expect from children. You know, we tell kids, like, you know, don't hurt people's feelings. Do you think of your friends when you make choices? Think of, well, why don't we?
Yeah. Right. Then we get to be an adult and we're doing the same things and we're like, well, this is fine. As we preach to our kids, we should be doing different. We have to model.
Yes, 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go, but do you have any last words or tips or any other messages you want to get across to my listeners?
I think we covered it all. I think moms just need to know that they're worthy of being imperfect and they're worthy of not having their shit together, and none of that makes them a bad mom. And even if mom guilt exists, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because we feel it, just because we think it, doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much. I feel like this was such a valuable conversation, and I hope that we helped at least one person.
I hope give people the courage to maybe be vulnerable and say, do you know what? This is something I'm going through, so that way they can find the other people around them going, holy shit, me too.
Right, yes. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure, and I hope you have a good holiday.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. I can't believe I cried. She's the second person to make me cry. But that's what I'm going through right now, and that's where I'm at with it. And I felt like I was in a therapy session at some point. So sorry if we digressed and it was all about me. But I really enjoyed speaking with her. It was a wonderful conversation. I love counselors. I have so many friends that are counselors, and I swear, like, it's just this innate personality trait that is in them to just listen and let you be heard. And the message here is, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, and drop the guilt. Nobody is perfect, and that's not even the goal. Like, what is perfect? What does that mean? What does that word mean? Because somebody's perfect scenario might be different from yours. So just do you and what works for you and your family and your kids, and know that you are doing your best, and know that you matter as much as your kids do. So thanks, guys. I hope you are well and taking care of yourself.